Good afternoon, everybody. Being we are part of IMA only, I welcome you all to Jaipur, those who have come from outside the Rajasthan and different cities and from USA. Today we will be having some very interesting subject. And I think so each and everyone should be aware about the immunization schedule. Every time there are some addition, some subtraction, so we should be in touch with this subject because I think so all the physicians, they are advising for immunization to newborn, infants, children, adolescent and adult. Today in this afternoon session we will be having Dr. Jacob Puliyal. He is the head of Department of Pediatrics at Stephens Hospital, Delhi, member of National Technical Advisor Group of Immunization, 90 research papers in the International Journal and reviewer on many peer-reviewed journals, number of awards to his credit including Sir James Flatt Gold Medal for Indian Academy of Pediatrics. Now I welcome Dr. Jacob Puliyal. He will be talking on immunization.
In 1961, the world was still recovering from the Second World War. People were struggling to come to terms with how 12 million Jews could be tortured and exterminated on the orders of one person. Stanley Milgram was a psychologist at the Yale University. He decided to do an experiment. He put an advertisement saying that he was looking for volunteers to come for an experiment on learning. They would be paid $4 for their time, and that was a royal sum of money in those days. Assume that you went for that as a volunteer. When you went to Yale University, you would have been greeted by Stanley, who would introduce himself, take you to his office, and then straight away give you $4. Here are your $4. Whatever else happens, this is for you to keep. This experiment requires another volunteer. If that volunteer does not come in the next 1 hour, you're free to go. Very soon, the second volunteer comes in. Stanley goes over and introduces himself to him, gives him his $4, and then explains the experiment. He says one of the two of you will have to become a learner and the other will have to be the teacher. You have to draw lots. And because you came in first, you draw the lots first. So the lots are drawn and you get to be teacher. Both of you go down to the next room where the learner is seated on his chair. You realize that it is an electric chair. He is strapped onto his chair, jelly is put under the electrodes, but the volunteer is not particularly perturbed. You go with Stanley to the next room where there is a two-way microphone and you can hear what is said in the other room. Stanley tells you that you are supposed to read 2 words in a sequence: monkey, donkey, ass, buffalo, and like that. And the learner has to repeat those 2 words in the correct order. Suppose he makes a mistake, you press a red button and it delivers a small amount of shock. 15 volts, very small, hardly a tickle. Of course, the next time he makes an error, it goes to 30 volts, 45 volts, and so on, higher and higher. And just to give you a taste of what the learner is getting, the Stanley gives you a shock of about 45 volts. And that's fairly nasty. The experiment starts. You start reading the words in sequence and the learner is very sharp. He tells all the words correctly. But somewhere down the line he makes a mistake. You press the red button, he gets a small shock. It's hardly enough to be recognized, but his voice suddenly changes. He's more serious now. Little way down, makes another mistake, 30 volts, 45 volts, goes on to 90 volts. Then he screams, "Get me out of here." You turn to Milligram and say he's asking to be let out. Milligram says the experiment requires you to continue. You continue. 145 votes. He says, I got a heart condition, I'm going to die, get me out. You turn to Milligram. Milligram says it won't do any permanent damage. You continue. 250 votes. There is a scream and then silence. Stanley says treat silence as a wrong answer. At the end of the experiment, as you are walking out, you see the volunteer going out also. He doesn't seem to be particularly damaged. The whole experiment was a farce. All the screaming and shouting were recorded noises. No electricity was delivered to the patient. But Stanley demonstrated that 65% of the population would, on orders or instructions from somebody in a white coat, give up to lethal levels of shock to a fellow being. This experiment has been repeated not only in Yale but in a number of places. Everywhere, about 60 to 65% of the people will follow orders. I am not interested in that 65. I am interested in the 35 who defied Stanley. Those who said no and stood up for their ethical values. All of you who have come here must belong to that 35%.